Hi and welcome to my video on the IPA Chart English consonants. I'm going to be spending a bit of time today just going through the IPA chart, this part of it, and covering all of the English consonant phonemes that you may be needing to transcribe. So this is really helpful for SLTs or SLT students, those that are just about to go on to placement. So I'm just going to be going through the English phonemes today. I will be doing another video on the non-English phonemes and diacritics as well, and also be covering the English vowels on another video. I'm just going to do a bit of an introduction to what this looks like. So when you're first learning about the IPA chart and you're given this, I think it feels quite scary. There's a lot of different symbols on there. So I'm going to help you to try and make sense of it, because there is a really useful order to get your head around when you're looking at it. So I'm going to spend a bit of time just talking that through. So at the top, it obviously says consonants pulmonic. Pulmonic means that is the airflow, so coming outwards from the lungs. So these are all our pulmonic consonants. Within that, there are a number of English and non-English consonants there. So it is organised in the following three ways. It's organised by voice, by place, and by manner. So in each of the boxes, you can see here, you've got a pair sometimes of phonemes of these symbols. So on the left-hand side are the voiceless version, and on the right hand side are the voiced version. What that means is the voice refers to whether the vocal cords are on or off. So when we produce the phoneme, so each pair of symbols is either voiced or voiceless. So when they are voiced, our voice is on, and when they are voiceless, our voice is off. So for example, on the phoneme P, we do not use our voice, and on the phoneme B, we do use our voice. So that's the same for every single pair of phonemes that are in the same kind of spot. So for example, down here, these alveolar fricatives, you've got the voiceless alveolar fricative on the left, S, and the voiced version on the right, Z. Okay, so that's voice. The next part is place. So they run across the top here. These are all of our places of articulation. So they go from the front of our oral tract, so our mouth here, the bilabial position, all the way through to the back. So it's in order from front to back along the top there. So going from the bilabial position, which is our two lips, and then through the positions of the front of the tongue, towards the back of the tongue, and then to those glottal positions. We'll go through each of those when we think about the different particular phonemes within them. So that's the place. So we've done voice and place, and then manner are these down here, and that's how I've organised talking about the English phonemes today. So we go from plosive all the way down to these approximants. That is how the phonemes are made. So the manner of articulation starts at the top with the most constriction. So that's whether you are putting your articulators closely together. So close to the articulators are together are at the top, and then those that are further away are at the bottom. So the least constriction. So let's go through each of those phonemes. How we're going to do it today is we're going to talk through across. So each slide is going to have a manner of articulation, and I'm going to talk through each individual one. I'm going to give you the voice, place, manner label for each of those English phonemes. So I've done an extra one here as well, and I'll explain that at the end. So we've got at the beginning here, we've got the ones I've just spoken about. So we have the voiceless bilabial plosive, which is P. That is on words such as P and happy and cap. So in lots of different positions in the word. And then we have the voiced version of B. So that is the voiced bilabial plosive. So again, those are made, the bilabials are made with the two lips coming together. So what happens with both of those phonemes is that our lips come together, the air from our lungs comes into our oral tract because our velum is closed, and the air gets stopped at the bilabial position at the two lips because our lips are closed. And then it's the release of our lips that makes those sounds. So it's the plosion coming out, the air is released and it makes those sounds. So that's the bilabial position. So that's the voiceless bilabial plosive and the voiced bilabial plosive. B is present in lots of different words again, in all different positions. So ball, and also in medial and final positions as well, like cab and final position. So we have next along, we do have these as well, but they aren't common and we don't have the English, they're not English phonemes, so we're not going to cover those. So we have these two here, which are the alveolar plosives. We have t and d. So t is the voiceless alveolar plosive and d is the voiced alveolar plosive. So they are, t is present in words like tea and hat, and the d is in dear and had. Then we move all the way to the velar position. So the velar position is when the tongue, the back of the tongue hits the roof of the mouth at the back, at the velar position, at the velum. So the voiceless version is k, as in cat or mac, and the voice version is g, as in go, or the end of dog, in word find position on dog. All of those are pretty straightforward because they kind of match our graphemes, so they really should be familiar to you, but obviously they're not all the same, they're not all like that. And we do come to this one here, which is the voiceless glottal plosive, which is also known as a glottal stop. Officially, it's not an English plosive and an English sound, but we do use it a lot. So on a word such as butter, if you are from certain accents, certain areas in the country, you might not use that t sound in the middle. You might say, use the glottal stop. You might say butter. So it's that sound. So that is a voiceless glottal plosive or a glottal stop. Right, these are our nasals. We only have 3 English nasals. A nasal is when the velum, so that bit at the back of the mouth that lets the air go into the nose, to the nasal cavity, is open. These are the only 3 English phonemes that have that nasal, that the air escapes into the nasal cavity. For all the rest of them, the velum is closed and the air is going into the oral cavity. We're making those sounds there. But these nasals are slightly different. So we have same position as the p and the m, which is why I've left it there to show you. And the difference is that we have the air escaping into the nasal cavity. So it's a sound. So is a voiced bilabial nasal. These are all voiced because if we had air escaping into the nasal cavity and our voice box was off, we're not using any voice, no sound would come out. We're only getting sound if we're getting plosion or we're getting friction from our oral cavity. So we're not getting that, obviously. So these are all voiced sounds. So that's our voiced bilabial nasal. That's present in words like mum, both at the beginning and at the end. And here is our n, which is our alveolar position. Didn't mention how we make an alveolar position for this t and d, so I'll do it now. In the alveolar position, we are using the active articulator, which is the thing that the articulator that is moving is the front of our tongue. So it's moving up towards the alveolar ridge, which is just behind our teeth. You can feel that with your fingers. It's just behind our teeth. So our tongue rests, the front of our tongue rests on the alveolar ridge, and the air is stopped there, and then it escapes back up through the nasal cavity. So that is a n sound. That's a voiced alveolar nasal. And again, these two are very familiar in graphemes as well. That would be on a word such as nose or main, at the end of main. Then we have this one, so which it is like an n, but with a little tail, almost like the g. So you have that tail going down underneath a line. That is a ng sound, and we only get those in word medial positions and word final positions on words like ring and sing and going. Okay, so that's the voiced velar nasal. We have a lot, as you can see, of English fricatives. So we'll go through these one by one. We start with this new position here. So we have this labiodental position. So you've kind of got an idea of what that might be, because labio means lip, from that bilabial, and dental means teeth. So what's happening is the bottom lip is touching the top teeth. So we're getting a voiceless labiodental fricative. A voiceless labiodental fricative is fricatives create friction. So the air isn't stopped, but they are close enough that the air is constricted, so it creates friction to come out. We are constricting the airflow, so it's really squeezed. It's having to push past our articulators to make that friction. So that's where we get these fricatives from. So the voiceless labiodental fricative is f on words like fight and laugh. And then we have the voiced version, which is the voiced labiodental fricative, which is v. So on words like vet. Okay, so again, that was familiar, but we have these two new symbols again. This first one is the voiceless dental fricative. So that is a th sound. So it's a voiceless version of how we tend to write the th. So th, and it's on words like theatre. So no voice on theatre. And thumb. Then we have the voiced version, which is here, the voiced dental fricative, which is the voiced version. And we use that on a lot of smaller words. Those really common usage words like the and them and those and this. So there's our voiced dental fricative. Our is going backwards. Okay, so we'll go back to the fricatives. Then we have a really common one. So we have these alveolar fricatives. So the voiceless alveolar fricative is s, as in sigh or gas. And then we have the voiced version, which is the voiced alveolar fricative of z, which is in zoo. And then we have, move across, we have less familiar phonemes again. So we have these post-alveolar. So that is just behind the alveolar ridge. We're not using the tip of the tongue often for these sounds. We are using the blade, which is just a little bit lower on our tongue. And we're moving it just slightly behind our alveolar ridge. So for these sounds, the air is escaping again in like getting some friction. So we've got the sh and a zh sound. Not probably quite as familiar, that second one, but the first one should be very familiar. So the first sound is the voiceless version. So it's a voiceless post-alveolar fricative. That's a sh sound on words like ship, sugar, washing. And then we have the voiced version, which is zh, which isn't very common on initial words, but it's really common on in the middle of words and word final position. So word medial and word final position. Things like measure and beige. That's when they come. We can use those. So they're the post-alveolar fricative. That's the voiced alveolar fricative. Then we move all the way through these and we come to this glottal position. So the same position that we made that glottal stop in butter. What we're doing here, we are making a fricative sound in the same position, a voiceless fricative sound, which is a h sound. So on a word such as house, that's a voiceless glottal fricative. So there are English fricative sounds. Then we get a little bit less constriction. So this means that the articulators are actually quite far apart, which means that if we make these sounds a little bit longer, they can sound a little bit vowel-like. So I'll give you an example here of that y sound, which is here. When we make that a little bit longer, y, it can become like an e sound. So y, y. Can you hear that it's a little bit more vowel-like? So our articulators are a little bit open. There's a little bit of more space in our oral cavity for those sounds to be released. So we have the English ones we have here are the alveolar approximant. So it's a voiced alveolar approximant of r, and make sure that we're writing it like this and not the correct way round, because that's more of a trill sound, which is a r sound. So if we're doing a r as in really, and in rhotic accents, if you're saying things like bar with a r at the end, which we don't tend to in a lot of English accents, but certainly in Scotland and in some parts of England, we are using those at the ends of words as well. But that is our voiced alveolar approximant. Then we come here, and confusingly in English, this looks like a j sound, but it isn't. This is the y sound. And if you think about in other languages, that grapheme actually does represent a y. So in words, names like Jürgen, for example, that would be represented with this phoneme, this sound, and this grapheme. So that's why, and I think it confuses a lot of English people and UK people, because that isn't how we spell it, but it is in a lot of other languages. So that is a voiced palatal approximant. Palatal position is your hard palate, so your tongue is coming up to your hard palate in the middle of your mouth, and making a y sound. So that is on words like yellow. Not on the main IPA table at the top, we have this w sound, which is obviously an English sound. What we're doing, we're moving our tongue up to the back at the velar position, but we're also rounding our lips to make a w sound. So that's why it's not on the main IPA chart at the top, because there's two places of articulation for this sound. So the w phoneme, which is in window, is the voiced labial velar approximant. Another one, which is further down, are these lateral approximants. And what lateral means is that the air is escaping around the sides of our tongue, not over the top, but at the sides. So if we imagine this l sound, which is our only English lateral approximant, l, what we're doing, we're putting our tongue up in the same position as the r sound, so at that alveolar position, but the air is escaping around the sides of our tongue because our tongue is a little bit thinner. We're not flattening our tongue out. So the air escapes, so l. So that is a voiced alveolar lateral approximant. So most of these again are like those graphemes. I'm going to give you another couple as well. I'll put this on a different slide, different type of slide, to show you that it's not on the main IPA chart. And I wanted just to talk through the Affricates, because I know some students find these a little bit trickier. So the English Affricates are a combination of the alveolar plosives and the post-alveolar fricatives. So to remind you, the alveolar plosives are t and d. So the voiceless version was a t, and the voiced version is a d. And the post-alveolar fricatives are sh and zh. So what they do, we put the voiceless alveolar plosive and the voiceless post-alveolar fricative, so t and sh together, combine them, and we make a new sound, which is called an affricate. An affricate is a combination of a plosive and a fricative. So these are our voiceless alveolar affricates and our voiced alveolar affricates. The voiceless alveolar affricate is ch. That is a t and a sh put together. Ch on words like church. There's 2 in there on church. And then we have this voiced alveolar fricative, which is a combination of the d and the j sound, which is j on words like judge. So again, there's 2 in that, judge. So you have that j at the beginning and the j at the end. That's all of our English consonants. So I will be doing another video on the non-English consonants. I'll probably do one on diacritics as well, and I'm going to do a English vowels one probably in the next few weeks. So if there's any other videos or content that you would like on anything phonetics wise or speech sound disorder wise, then please let me know. Thank you for watching.